Hey everyone, let's take a look at email. Let's take a look at what can happen in our email systems to really cause us some trouble. This kind of information, so you're going to see some of this duplicated over and over again because it has to do with social engineering, and it's very much the same type of stuff that you would need to be aware of for if you're just browsing the web. This is the same type of information that you would need to be aware of for a messaging attack or a voicemail attack. It's all social engineering. So really what we're going to do is basically give you some guidance, some principles like do these things, don't do these things. And then mixed in with that is going to be this is how you can kind of know. And of course, with AI, this is going to become harder. So you really have to think defensively. You really have to think, uh, I just got an email. I don't know if I should trust what's in it. That's really what you have to think. It's sad that we live in that world, but we all know that. We all know that that's the way you have to think if you're traveling and you're out where you're not used to, right? You're meeting and dealing with people you don't usually deal with. I mean, these days you have to be kind of like, well, let's see if I can trust this person. Let's see if I can trust these individuals, because it is the world we live in. And it's much more heightened within messaging and emails, which is very similar. So let's take a look. We're going to try to recognize when a phishing attack is occurring, and we're going to try to detect when spoofing is happening. Spoofing basically is, an old term that we've used in technology for quite some time, meaning that the attacker pretends to be somebody that they're not, or the attacker uses some kind of identification like an IP address that's not theirs. So in this situation, for instance, we can look at this from course module. This is all made up for the presentation. But this looks real, cyber safety at eac.edu. That's not an active account, by the way. But eac.edu is our domain, so that looks correct. But what if this is just the text they typed in to say who they are? Now, this is very common, and so it's a type of spoofing. And when you come up here and highlight this, you just hover over it, just like you do for those web links. Then it shows the real email address. Or sometimes in email systems, you have to drop it down to show the details of that information. And then you're, oh, that's been spoofed. That's not even the actual address they're using. They're using, hi, I want to hack you at hackme dot whatever. So that's spoofing. That's what that refers to. And then how do we handle links and attachments safely if they include something in the email? How do we deal with that? And we're going to use a verification to stop scams before they succeed. So we'll take a look at what do you mean by that. Okay, here is our unit overview. We'll deal with the fact that email remains the one of the largest vectors. So when we talk about you getting hit through you browsing the web, email is the second biggest. It's huge. And again, you could include messaging in on that because it's the same type of thing. The attackers usually rely on deception, usually urgency, always, and they try to trick you into clicking links or opening an attachment or just sending them money and credentials straight through the email. This unit focuses on recognizing those phishing emails, understanding spoofing, and again, safely handling those links and attachments. So let's take a look. Here's primary topics that we'll be going through and our learning objectives, 1 and 2. So quite a bit, but again, it's all kind of interrelated. It's all these little tiny things. So let's get started. Phishing email characteristics. They commonly include, I need it now, this needs to be done, I need this by tomorrow, something like that, that forces you to just stop thinking about what you're seeing and go ahead and do what they said. Sorry, that was I hit the corner down there. They claim that you're going to lose your account access, your account's been compromised, you're going to lose money. That's the one I always use. Like Amazon tells you that you just bought that $5,000 TV. That's you thinking you're going to lose money. So you've got to fix this immediately, immediately. That urgency is designed to have you bypass your careful thinking about, wait a minute, did this come from Amazon? Who did this come from? And guaranteed they've spoofed that email, a type of spoofing, and at the top it'll say email, it'll say Amazon account team and doesn't really show you what the email address is. And you should know that most email programs will hide the actual email address. Now, some have started to switch back. So, because of this, because they know you need to see the email address, not what they want you to see. So, in other words, if I'm emailing my friend back and forth and I email him, it'll say James McBride at the top. Well, I could make that say James McBride at Eastern Arizona College or James.McBride at eac.edu, or that can be anything. And so lots of them have switched back to, okay, well, this is what they want you to see, and then this is the actual email address they're sending from. But others, you still have to go and click on details, or you have to go and hover on it, and then that will actually tell you what you need to know. So spoofing, again, forges or manipulates that address. Literal spoofing means that they would actually readdress it so that you're thinking, oh, is this coming from James.McBride at myboss.com? And it actually was spoofed from that. So that's exactly where it says that it comes from. But most are not that tricky. Not most. Almost all of them are not that tricky. Instead, again, they put that text up saying that's where it's from. And then you go up and hover over it and it's someplace, hi, I want to steal all your money.com. Makes the email appear to come from that legitimate source, often used in phishing and business email compromise. BEC attacks or business email compromise attacks are basically the same attack that you would receive personally, but it's through the business email. More specifically, or focusing in further, it usually is very much pointed towards that business. There's so much information that a hacker can gain online, especially now through AI, that they can say, let's do a bunch of research with EAC. Who are they actually dealing with? Contractors. Who do they contract with right now? And you can find that information out. And then they can say, let's pretend to be one of those contractors and we'll message somebody that deals with those contractors. And so it's a very targeted attack and very dangerous. All right, so high risk attachments. What is included in that? Well, the big ones are .exes, .scrs, VBS, I'll pull up a whole list of them. There's a whole list of them. But basically, these types of files can actually be run. So that's what we need for a virus. That's what we need for a worm. We need this thing to run. So what happens is it gets downloaded in your email, and then you see the attachment and it says the pictures from our last vacation, but it's .exe. And you think, oh, this is just a bunch of pictures zipped up, and you double click it, and instead you run the virus. All systems warn you of that now. They all go, hey, this is an email attachment. As a matter of fact, most people use webmail, meaning that they log into a website like Gmail, and it will warn you as you're downloading it. Right? There's the message, there's the attachments, and you say, yeah, I need to see those pictures. I'm going to download that. It says, that's an exe file. You shouldn't be doing this. And they also do it for other files that are just flat executable. Now, if you ran this on a Mac, it wouldn't do anything because this is coded for a Windows machine. You'd have to have some kind of emulation virtualization running, and then that would do something. For a Mac, it's .app, but it's the same deal. It still would come up and say, hey, I'm going to run now. Depending on your system, whether it's a Mac or Windows, and your security that's set up, when you double click that, it should stop it and say, are you sure you want to run this? Definitely does that on the Mac, and it will do that on Windows, but it depends on how you've got it set up. So be extremely cautious with unexpected attachments, even from known senders, because they could have been hacked and they didn't send it. The virus sent it out to you. It's very common for that. Now, let's be honest here. You know who you know, and you associate with who you associate with. So what you really should do in this situation is if all of a sudden you get this email from a daughter-in-law or an uncle or an aunt, and it's like, oh, they've got some pictures here, or they've got this. Usually that's what it is, right? Usually it's like, oh, video or whatever. Then you should message them back or email them back. Don't click reply, create a new email, type in their name, send it and say, hey, did you send me an attachment? Or if you're, really impatient, right, message them. Hey, I just got an email from you. Did you send me an attachment? And they'll respond and they'll say yes or no. This kind of stuff is used in a business compromise a lot, where basically they have spoofed that address and boss says, I really need this information. Please look at this file and fill out what needs to be filled out. Well, there's nothing to fill out. When you double click it, it runs some kind of virus. All right, link safety. Hover over the link as we have described in other videos so that you know, because the link in the text can say whatever they want it to say. It can say eac.edu and it's blue and it's a hyperlink and you can click it. But when you hover over it, it says, hi, I want to hack you. That's not the same place, right? That most people are aware of. Most people are very aware that that's the way it works. However, when they've done this thing with urgency, then there's very much an opportunity for you to just go, oh, I'll click it. And then you're like, ah, crap, I just clicked that and I shouldn't have, right? Because they get our brain in that mode. This helps identify the misleading and spoofed address because you can see the text that it's really going to go to and avoid just don't click links from unknown or unexpected sources. There's so many people do that. We would not get so much spam if people weren't clicking on all the stuff that comes through the spam. If everybody just said, well, this email looks really cool and it looks like I'm going to get free whatever, it's worth a shot. If people didn't do that, we wouldn't get spam. It would dry up. All right. Business email compromise in particular. Attacker impersonates a manager, an executive, a trusted vendor, as I was saying. They send urgent requests for wire transfer, other financial actions, gift cards. Yeah, that's always a big deal. That usually a gift card, it's like they're trying to launder money. That can happen too. Exploits authority and trust. So I get an email and my boss says, hey, we've been working on this project and I can't get into my account. I can't get in. Please, will you send me account information because I need to reset this? And you're like, oh, yeah, let me help you, boss. Um, that kind of thing, any kind of urgency, you would expect a message. Like we use Teams a lot at EAC. So if I got an email like that, I would be looking for a Teams message, something, because this is, if my immediate boss sent me that kind of stuff and it was that quick, I'd be like, why didn't they just message me or call me? As a matter of fact, my boss would call me and say, man, I'm in trouble. Of course, with AI now, right, they might fake his voice. So you have to watch that too. Basically, the idea is how do you make sure that you don't get tricked on that? You make sure you call them. You make sure that you pull up an email brand new and say, hey, did you send me this message about needing this account information? Don't reply to it. And the same thing for actually messaging within your phone, right? Most people are aware of that. It's like, I'm not sure if this is who it's from. Then you go up and pull up their name, and oh, that message isn't even under them. That's weird. But you would still message them and say, hey, did you send this to me? It's a verification process. Just slow down and find out. Grammar and spelling these days is going to be going away, but you do need to be aware of this. Grammar and spelling, red flags. It's not proper grammar. The period has a space. It's like, I need your help, space, period, space, next sentence. Anything like that is really, really a red flag because it's not their native language and they're creating this and sending out millions of these things. So you want to look for those kinds of problems prior. However, again, AI is going to improve all that. So that's, as they say, not always there. So again, well, spammers use urgency. It discourages verification and second opinions. Immediate action required. That is a red flag, pressure to act quickly. That is almost always there. So how do you handle those unexpected attachments? Again, you call them, you text them in person. You do not open it until they verified, oh yeah, I did send that to you. Then you know that's okay. Again, when you're talking about attachments, it doesn't matter. Well, messages or SMS is a little easier because that's going to come from a different phone. And so you usually will be able to look and say that's a different phone number than them. But what if they actually had a virus themselves and that virus ran and then sent out itself as an attachment? Well, then that's a whole different issue. That's why don't open it until you verify it. Compromised accounts can be used to spread malware. And this is something people don't think of. Some of you out there have lost access to a Facebook account before, or Instagram, or something like that, maybe recently. And those accounts then are used for this kind of attack. And they try to find out who you know and they send it to those people. And that's why you know that if you get locked out, hey, I've been locked out, this account is no longer mine. You're telling everybody the hackers have control of this. Please don't pay any attention to it. And then the suspicious URLs. This is a perfect example, wonderful example right here. www.bankofamerica. That is correct, right? Oh, wait. .securelogin-alerts.com. So what you need to know about this email address, and I thought about, well, should I mention this before? But this is a good place to mention it because it makes sense here. www.bankofamerica.com is a domain name, and it is a proper Bank of America domain name. So what is the domain name here? Is this whole thing the domain name? No, actually, this is the domain name. SecureLogin-alerts.com. That's the domain name. Anything in the, whoops, I just cut that out. I moved that. Anything in the period preceding is actually a subdomain. And so it's really important that people recognize that if you got something, for instance, from Amazon, they try to trick you. They try to say www.amazon.com dot, and the name continues. And they usually try to make it something like this, account trouble. But then, and so what they're playing on is people do not understand what a domain name really is. And because they don't understand that, then they run into trouble. So remember, wherever you end up with the .com, the .edu, the whatever it happens to be, .net, .uk, right? EU, UK, all these different ones, .biz, that the ending portion of that is the registered name. So when you see if this was .biz, what comes before that up to the next dot is the domain name. That's what you're looking at. That's what you have to watch out for. Now I'm going to give you another example. We'll just type it right in here. So let's do, this is common. Microsoft account verification. Then we'll do the next part. So we'll do dot. So what is the domain name? ifg.biz. That's the domain name. The rest of it is a subdomain, and you can make those say whatever you want as long as it's unique. Now, another thing that will happen is they may not go to that kind of trouble. They may say Microsoft at something. Anything after this backslash also does not matter. This is a subdomain or a directory within that structure. The only part that matters is right here. That's the part that matters. So when you're dealing with a suspicious email, then you need to look at the domain name. So the first part of this would be like accounts at microsoft.fbz.biz. And so this is the fraudulent portion. This is telling you right there, this is bad. And the same thing here. This is telling you that's bad because this is not Bank of America. This is secureloginalerts.com. That's who is actually sending that. So just be aware of that. If you have any questions, let me know because that can be confusing if you're not familiar with that kind of information. So be skeptical, verify any suspicious requests, don't rush to action. Caution and verification are critical defenses. So that's really what you have to do in this. To sum it up, all this technical information really boils down to be skeptical, verify if that's true. Let's use, again, the Amazon as an example. You spent $5,000 in Amazon. We're shipping that TV. It's going out tomorrow. Urgency. I got to do something about this. They want you to click the link in the email. So now you've learned, oh, I can go hover over the link and it'll show me, oh, that link is not going to Amazon.com. It's going to Amazon.somethingscrewy.com. That's where that's going to. And then you also would just bypass the whole thing and go into Amazon itself and see if it shows up in your orders. So you would bypass the entire system. All right, so that is that. If you have any questions, then please let me know. Otherwise, have a good one.